Welcome to the Happy, Healthy Life Podcast with your hosts, Rob and Randy, who reveal the truth, the lies, and confusion about health so that you are no longer the victim to mainstream medical dogma and you are the hero to your own happy, healthy story.
Welcome back to the Happy Healthy Life podcast with your host, Rob and
Randy.
And we are
the Happy Healthy guys.
All right, so what if veggies you thought were keeping you healthy? Like spinach, kale, broccoli, were actually making you feel bloated, tired, inflamed, and making you sick?
Ooh, what if?
Eating more vegetables be the worst advice that you could ever have and be causing more harm than any good? Today we are going to answer that question. The title of today's episode is Leafy Lies. Leafy Lies, the other side of eat more vegetables. Last week was part one. We talked about grains. We talked about the truth behind grains. Should you be eating the grains? We'll recap that as we're beginning the episode. But I'm excited about today because if there's any type of content right now that is controversial, it is telling somebody to not eat a salad. That person will stab you with their salad fork.
Oh my gosh. On that note, I had posted on my Facebook page and it was really this topic about plants and vegetables. And I ended everything with, and salads are not healthy. And literally people's brains melted
They lost their
and
minds.
their head exploded. I had, hate and vitriol. And some people are like, thanks for saying that because I'm miserable. And I was saying it because I used to be that guy
Same.
who was eating all the salads, and I would feel so bloated. My stomach would hurt. My bowels would be weird. And I would be like, well, I guess my body's just detoxing, And I would justify it because, vegetables just have to be healthy because this is what we've been told. And so I really was at a level of what they call a cognitive dissonance, where what I've been told and believed wasn't matching up with the truth about how I felt. So it's like, don't believe your lying eyes. Vegetables have to be healthy. Yet now when you go back and look at it, and it really started me down that road years ago of like, what if vegetables really aren't what they said they are? In fact, as you know, in 2023, I went one whole year without eating any vegetables, not one single vegetable for 1 year. And guess what?
You're still alive.
I didn't die, and I no longer had gas and bloating and gut pain and weird bowels. Like, it radically changed my life to no longer be plant-based. So we're not going to say don't ever eat plants. We're not going to say, hey, if you're doing great with plants, don't keep doing that. But remember, the framework of what we teach is when you eat, you want to eat the most nutrient dense, bioavailable, real food nutrition with the least amount of defense chemicals. This is the goal when you're eating because you want to flood your body with nutrients. We say stop counting calories, start counting nutrients. And the reality is plants just don't check that box from a vitamin to a mineral to a nutrient density to a bioavailability with all of these freaking defense chemicals and anti-nutrients, which we're going to talk about. So let's rock and roll.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, because I can remember once upon a time when we talked about this last time about the size of the cereal bowl that we had once upon a time. Because we thought eating
largest
cereal
bowl in the house,
was the
right?
right thing to do. But it was funny because as we were talking about it, that I was thinking, all I did was way back when, exchanged that big gigantic cereal bowl for a big gigantic salad bowl and started doing that. Never felt worse. But I can also remember I was that person that I would have to force myself to eat breakfast, for example, because I thought breakfast was the most important meal of the day. And it was going against what my body was saying to do because innately, it was like, I don't want to eat breakfast. I would say that I'm not a breakfast person. Well, the reason is because, that was a lie that if you don't know the lie, go back and listen to the last episode, part one. We talked about why breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. And so on this episode, we're going to get into why Leafy greens or cruciferous vegetables aren't always your friends. We're going to be talking about natural plant toxins, like one that you've probably heard of called oxalates
Hmm.
or even lectins. We talked about that on the last episode. We're going to dive even deeper into that. And then why even cooking your vegetables could make a big difference. So we're going to give some practical application today. So you want to make sure that you listen to the very end. And we'll talk about which veggies are safer for your metabolisms versus the ones to avoid that are stopping your body's metabolism, because we always want to make sure that it comes back to your metabolism,
Yeah.
because that's the way your body heals, repairs, and
It's
efficiently.
not about being slim. It's
It's
literally how your body detoxes, repairs, and heals and adapts to the environment.
Yeah, and last but
Yep.
not least is how to support and make sure that your gut is as healthy as possible. That's important, especially at this time of year. We are in April. Everything is about spring cleaning your body.
Yeah.
And here's what we know is that if you have an unhealthy gut, it's going to be literally impossible to be healthy.
Hmm.
So let's rewind a little bit. Let's recap what we talked about last week and what
Yeah.
it is that we did say about grains, gluten, and gut health. We talked about how we have been grain washed.
We have.
And so, what were some of the high points that we talked about last week to catch everybody up into what it is that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, well, we talked about just the foundation of plant-based nutrition is, remember, all living organisms want to protect their seed, Dr. Rob.
Yeah.
So that's a normal human
Mama
and
want to protect the
plants.
babies.
Yeah, mama bear. If you know, you know, you want to protect that seed, that child, that baby. And so plants, unlike animals, can't fight or flight. They can't run away from danger and they can't fight to defend themselves. So because they can't do that, they actually fight. It's very sinister. They do it through poisoning. And so all plants, every single plant on God's green earth is toxic. Every single one of them. Doesn't mean if you eat them, you're going to die. Now, some plants will kill you if you eat them. Some will kill you a little bit slower. Some will take years. Some people are able to break them down and process them easier. But by nature, the way God designed it, plants have chemical defense systems and anti-nutrients. So we talked about the lectins and the prolamines and wheat germ agglutinin. We talked about a lot of these lectins and anti-nutrients and phytic acid that bind key minerals that actually stop your body's detoxification process, that actually disrupt and inflame the gut. And remember, drugs that are the backbone of drugs are made from plants. That's really, plants aren't real food nutrition. Plants are medicine. That's a fact. They're not real food nutrition. And a lot of all the drugs are made from the backbone of plants. A lot of these plants are even used in common medications that you take, even drugs designed to treat tumors in our body. You're not making drugs from ribeye steaks, and they're not making it from grass fed butter. So remember, that's the foundation, is when you're eating food, you want to make sure you're eating nutrient dense, bioavailable food that has the least amount of toxins and defense chemicals. Plants just don't check that box, Dr. Rob.
They don't. And it's crazy because it goes completely against the grain from what it is that we had
Against the
always.
grain, no pun intended,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, I didn't even mean to say that. But yeah, it literally goes against the grain and saying that, what we've been taught our
Yeah.
whole entire lives is you've got to make sure that you eat all your veggies
Right?
because they're nutritious for you. Now, do they have nutrients in them? Yeah, they absolutely have nutrients in them. But like we said, even on the last episode, when it does come to grain, you can have a healthy, happy, healthy life
Hmm.
and never ever eat another grain again in your life, and
Yeah.
you're going to be okay. Okay.
I
So
mean, I did
let's,
it for a year.
yeah,
I've never felt better. How is that possible? So let's talk about what are some of the plant toxins. You want to go down that road
yeah,
yet? Or?
let's go down that
Yeah.
road. So let's talk about it. Okay, so the leafy greens, for example,
Yeah.
because that's what people are most used to. You go into the grocery
Yeah.
store and you see now, isn't it crazy? As I'm thinking about it, I'm picturing the grocery store. You walk into the produce section of the grocery store, and there is an
Oh
entire
my gosh.
wall of different types of lettuce.
Eat your veggies, right?
Eat your
Yeah.
veggies, ton of a wall of all the different kinds of greens, spring mix, the spinach mix,
Oh,
the
spinach.
iceberg
Yeah.
mix, the
The romaine,
the romaine. Yeah,
the
if there could be
arugula.
a type of food that is completely has zero nutrients at all and has zero nutritious value, that'd be iceberg lettuce.
Yeah, but they say you got to get your fiber, right? So you want to eat these salads, which we used to do, which by the way, all that fiber in these plants, there's no nutrition in fiber. You can't break it down. You can't absorb it. There's no nutritional value to it whatsoever. And it will actually block your body's ability to even get to the nutrients in the small intestine, shoving all this undigested food into your colon, causing severe inflammation and endotoxin. So, my gosh, stop eating salads was the most game-changing thing ever for me.
No, the cellulose in those plants that we're talking about is for it's to give them structure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're not supposed to eat the structure of it,
Well,
so it just doesn't make any sense. Your body can't break it down.
well, the plant
So
is the stem,
that's
the
what I mean.
leaf, the seed, all that
The
cellulose.
branch of a tree. Think about that. You don't want to eat that.
No, because we don't even have cellulase to break down the cellulose. You have to get it to the colon where the bacteria can now try to break it down. We're not a gorilla. We don't have this mega colon so we could eat 50 bananas, ferment it, break it down, and use cellulase. That's just not how God designed us. We're not ruminant animals like a cow with 4-chambered stomachs who can regurgitate and ruminate and biohydrogenate all of those plants and use them for energy and make these beautiful, healthy, saturated fats. That is not how God designed us.
He did not. All right, so let's get into it. So when we look at things like the spinaches, the kales, the lettuce, the cabbage, the broccoli, they are all full of either toxins or anti-nutrients. We got into that on the last episode.
The
Let's
biggest one is what? Probably
oxalate.
oxalic acid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about these oxalates and this oxalic acid, which do contribute to things like joint pain, arthritis, inflammation, kidney stones, gout, all of these different things. What in the world is an oxalate?
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically a metabolite's a breakdown crystal. It's an acid and it's a chelating molecule. So what it will do, it'll bind to key minerals, things like magnesium and calcium and zinc and manganese and copper and all these other key minerals that our body needs, even binding to iron. So oxalic acid, really it'll bind with these magnesium and calcium and they'll actually form these crystals. And so a lot of people end up with these deposits because it's oxalic acid. It has an ability to bioaccumulate. So it'll aggregate and find itself packing into your tissue. So things like stones that end up in your organs, in your kidneys, in your bladder. A lot of these are oxalic acid crystals based off your body's consumption of all of these oxalate based foods. Some of the worst ones you said, things like spinach and beets and greens and chard. You know, one of the hottest trends right now in the health community, which is not a trend that we recommend, is to start your day with a green juice drink. There's one you see now that's promoted by everybody all over the influencer world and all over TV. And they're saying to take this green shake. So you think about all of these plants full of oxalic acid blended out into a powder, and then you're adding it to almond milk, which also has oxalates and phytic acid, more chelators.
Call that swamp water.
Yeah, then you throw in a bunch of turmeric powder, which is tons of oxalates. Throw in your spinach, another oxalate bomb, putting massive stress on your kidneys. Throw in some cacao powder for even more oxalates. Mix it with beets. Throw in your green smoothie powder and drink all that up. You're literally just loading oxalate bomb after oxalate bomb, gut distress, kidney distress. There's been people literally that end up in the hospital with organ failures based off this overconsumption of all of this oxalic acid that you're getting from all these plants. So I think Popeye had it all wrong. I don't think he was building all those muscles by crushing cans of spinach.
No, I think behind closed doors,
He was visiting the tea clinic.
He was, yeah, he was on. He was roiding out.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. And if you're wondering about our Happy Healthy Metabolism products, go to thehappyhealthylife.com and at checkout, use promo code podcast to save 10% off any of our products.
Hey there. Thank you so much for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. We appreciate it. Now, if you're somebody who's curious about your metabolism, how you're doing with your metabolism, go to metabolismscore.com, take the quiz, find out where you're at. All right.
Yeah.
So oxalates, obviously that's a no-go. We just talked about why that is. On the last episode, we also talked about the lectins. Let's talk about that when it comes to the veggies. What do you got to say about that, Dr. Randy?
Yeah, the lectins are a problem as well. These are a big issue, especially you find these in the nightshade communities. So a lot of things like the eggplants, the tomatoes, even like the potatoes, especially white potatoes. There's a lot of these lectins, and lectins can really mimic the effects of insulin, which causes your body to actually become insulin resistant. I think lectins have a stronger affinity for insulin receptor sites in the body than even insulin itself. And so you can actually cause your blood sugar to rise and then not come back down in a normal postprandial way by eating foods laced in lectins. Well, that's a scary thing because when you can't absorb glucose because you're insulin resistant, we already know what happens, Dr. Rob. Now your body is going to store all of that glucose as fat. It's going to shove it into your fatty tissue. You're going to form more fat. So it's going to make you bigger, more inflamed, and more obese.
Yeah, it's not good for having a healthy metabolism at all. And so, okay, so what are some other anti-nutrients or toxins? Because that's one of the things that we talked about before. We always talk about is when we look at these, you look at plants, plants are, they're medicine.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not food. They're medicine. So, and we talked about the medicine being the toxins that are actually in the plants themselves. So, what are some other toxins? What other some anti-nutrients that we get from veggies?
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
What are the most popular ones?
Way
Yeah.
too many for this
Yeah.
podcast. But yeah, some of the most popular ones. This is one that
Or harmful, I should say. Not popular, but harmful.
yeah, very harmful. This is one that's interesting when you think about it because one of the most, if you ask people what are the healthiest veggies, a lot of people will say that it's going to be your brassica family, your cruciferous vegetables, things like cauliflower and bok choy and broccoli. Things like that. We've been told those are the healthiest vegetables, yet a lot of those vegetables fall into the family of what's called mustard greens, mustard seeds, and even rapeseed. Now,
Which is
we talk about, obviously avoiding PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and industrial omega-6 seed oil. Well, rapeseed, the plant, that is where they make canola oil from.
Mhm.
As you know, they'll hybridize this plant and they'll do it to break down and get rid of this toxin called erucic acid. Erucic acid is a heart toxin, and erucic acid is actually found in mustard greens. It's found in cruciferous vegetables, especially if you're getting like broccoli sprouts. They're even more concentrated. These are toxins that have deleterious effects on your heart and organ system. So, erucic acid, you want to stay away from it. It was interesting because you look at the brassica family of these cruciferous vegetables. The ones we eat here in America, these are almost like built in a laboratory. They're like Franken food because it's not what they actually look like. In fact, when we were in Italy, do you remember that eating at that restaurant and Antonio wanted to bring out, was it
it
broccoli?
was broccoli. It
Yeah.
didn't look like broccoli that we get here.
No.
Not at all. Even everything is different there compared to
Yes.
here.
Yes.
The chickens even there were like little bitty. They weren't like
These
gigantic.
massive,
Yeah.
chickens. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so listen, the a lot of the foods that we're eating have been hybridized and changed. It's really not what even our ancestors were eating. But all that to be said, hang around because we're going to show you the best ways to prepare some of these foods, which can have some value. But erucic acid is a real toxin. Here's another toxin that doesn't get a lot of hype, but equally a problem. And for a lot of you, especially this time of year where you sunburn very easily, we already know that omega-6 seed oil will cause your body to burn. Because remember, one of the detox organs is your skin.
Mm-hmm.
So your body's going to push toxins out to the skin to get rid of it, which will cause your body to be photosensitive. So there's an anti-nutrient, a defense chemical called psoralen, and it has a phototoxic effect, and it's found mainly in celery. So if you're eating a bunch of raw celery, That sourline, your body's pushing it to the surface of your skin. Now double that down with all of the pupa and the seed oil. You're setting yourself up for a phototoxic environment where now your skin's burning and getting red, where that normally would not happen. So be aware of sourlines. Another damaging chemical are called solanines. These are toxic chemicals, defense chemicals found in nightshades, things like peppers, tomatoes, eggplant, potatoes, specifically white potatoes. And these solanines will damage the gut. They're linked with skin conditions, specifically eczema. Also, a lot of achy and inflamed joints. So, solanines are another defense chemical found in these types of foods. We talked about the brassica family. It was an interesting study. We were talking about it before the podcast, where, if you've ever seen a plant and you see like bugs chewing on it, you'll start to see the plant will you'll see the plants where it's being eaten away, but then you'll see it stop. It doesn't fully ever eat the whole leaf, and then the other side of the plant never gets touched. So what they're showing is there's a toxic chemical called mustard oil found in a lot of plants that is released. It's an insecticide to get these insects to stop eating the plant.
Super smart.
Dude, plants,
They're alive.
they are alive. Just like if you're trying to eat a live animal, you're going to have a problem. Plants are alive. So they had done studies where they made caterpillar sounds of like munching on the leaf. And these plants were making
That's
so
so
much
crazy.
toxic mustard oil to stop the plant from eating the leaves and the stems and all the things they want to protect to make sure they can live into the next generation.
Dude, that's freaking gangster, actually. I like it.
That's a little bit female in nature, a little effeminate there. Where when people die on Dateline, if it's a woman who does the killing, it's usually by poison. If it's the guy, it's usually a knife, strangulation, or a gun. Not to say anything other than it is a
So that's like a whole Dexter season of Dexter.
man. It could be.
What was her name? The one that poisoned everybody. If you watch Dexter,
Oh
what
yeah,
was her
I don't
name?
remember her name.
Yeah, she was like the Black Widow. She poisoned everybody. Yeah, to your point. And
She must have been a plant.
she was a herbiculture expert. Remember
Well,
in the episode, she had
that's
the
why she knew
greenhouse.
about the
She
toxins.
was raising all of the plants and everything. And so I guarantee you she was
Yes.
not a vegetarian.
She was
We know
not.
Dexter was not a vegetarian. He was not
He
either.
definitely was not.
Right.
Good point. So she
Yeah.
knew the power of plant chemicals. And here's some more. If that wasn't enough, guys, here's some more. And you find these in the brassica family, the bok choys, the cauliflowers, the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts. Yes, those Brussels sprouts that you keep roasting and covering in cheese just to choke them down. They have components and defense chemicals called isothionates or goitrins. And here's one of the problems are these chemicals, Dr. Rob, they actually block iodine absorption at
Dude,
the thyroid.
they mess it up.
Holy smoke. So you see like when people get goiters, you can see it in their neck, in their chin, when they have even like a thyroid condition. What if eating all of these plants filled with isothiocyanates that are found in these cruciferous vegetables, they're even found in cassava flour. Everybody loves these siete chips and cassava flour. Cassava flour, that root has tons of isothiocyanates. It could be wrecking your thyroid. Those are just some of these toxins that, listen, we're not saying that if you eat these foods, you're all going to get sick. But what if some of you are getting sick? What if some of you could be thriving and doing better if you maybe knew what you were doing and could strategically plan your eating strategy around foods that didn't have these type of damaging chemicals?
Yeah, so I looked it up. Okay,
What you got?
The girl's name on Dexter.
Oh, you can't let this go.
I can't let it go. No, I had to find out what it is, and it
Yeah.
makes sense. Her name was
Ivy, poison ivy,
it was close. Her name was Lila.
oleander.
Her name was Lila, which
Yeah.
is a floral name like lilac and or lily. So it goes on. So it makes sense from a botanical standpoint
Absolutely.
of why they named her character that.
Yes.
Anyway, just a side note there.
Yeah.
That way, if you're not a Dexter fan, well, maybe you will be now. And now you've been introduced to Lila. All right. So let's talk about some practical things that we can do. Okay. So, like we're saying, we're not saying don't ever eat a vegetable. But if you are going to eat vegetables, for example, how would you prepare them? And I think even if we give that example, going back to what it is that you were talking about in Italy, because
Yeah.
this happens all the time. We'll meet people, we'll talk to people. We've experienced it before where, let's say, you go to Italy and you eat a pizza. Well, the pizza was made with flour as the crust. You don't feel bloated. You don't feel sick. You don't get the inflammation. You feel great. You feel like you could eat like 5 of these pizzas and not feel bad at all.
Yep.
Why would that be?
There's a lot of reasons, but you know, the grain over there, it's not the same grain that we're eating here. If you notice, it's not whole wheat grain. Remember, whole wheat grain, the bran and that fiber has all of those lectins that can disrupt and damage and inflame your gut. It's more of a white looking flour. So it has no wheat germ agglutinin in it, which is that lectin, that toxin that actually binds the body's ability to take up glucose. And what they do is also, by the way, too, they glyphosate is illegal over there. So they're not spraying all the wheat crop
There you go.
with the glyphosate, which a lot of people aren't even allergic to wheat. You are allergic to the chemical
For sure.
glyphosate. They're not using chemicals like transglutaminase, which they'll put into these bakery items. So they're taking this really clean heirloom type flour, and then what do they do to it?
They ferment it and they literally use beer fermentation for
Well,
it.
that one
It's
restaurant did.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so it's sprouted. It's like literally already
Yes.
been digested before it gets into your body. So your body's not having to break down all the stuff that you would be breaking things down here
Yeah, if
in
you're
the United
fermenting it
States.
and
Yeah.
sprouting it, you're reducing a lot of that phytic acid, and
Mhm.
they would even roll it. They'd ferment it in beer, break down the phytic acid, activate the enzymes and the nutrients, and then they would roll it up in ricotta cheese. Pretty amazing, by the way. But yeah, that's one of the reasons people go into Europe. You're not getting the chemicals, the food dyes, the glyphosate. They're not using this hybridized wheat. You're not getting a lot of the toxins that we get here. Because here we're obviously told to eat a bunch of cereal and grains and whole wheat bread and to get your 6 to 8 servings, which is loaded with all of these toxins and glyphosate and chemicals.
Yeah, and here's what I would say too is I would say this is my personal opinion would be to stay away from the green leafy greens just because of all the things that we've been talking about. If I'm being honest, the only reason I really liked eating salads is because they were a great what would you call that? A great catalyst or now here's what I would call it.
Like an appetizer?
They were a great carrier of salad dressing. If I was being honest, I like the dressing more than I like the
Exactly.
actual salad.
You can't choke it down without just piles of heaps of dressing.
Yeah, so if you're being honest with
Yeah.
yourself, would you really enjoy piling a bunch of spinach into a bowl and just loving the taste of that spinach? If you're being honest with yourself, I don't know a lot of people that are going to like that without putting any dressing or putting anything on it. They're eating it simply because somebody told them that it was a healthy thing to do and they're trying to convince you
Yeah.
that they love the taste of it. No, what they're really saying is that I'm being healthy.
Yeah. It's a virtue
it's a
signal.
virtual
It's a
signal.
virtue signal. It's like, and to all my Facebook haters, salads are still not healthy. If you want to eat them, you go for it. Pack your colon and bowel full of undigestible fiber and bulk up your stool and inflame your gut and enjoy the oxalates. But I'm telling you right now, salads are not healthy. You're not even getting bioavailable nutrients. The nutrients that you get in plants are not the same nutrients that you get in animal based nutrition. Vitamin K is not the same in spinach as it is in grass fed butter or SCT oil. It's just a fact. You can't get heme iron. You can't get bioavailable vitamins B12 specifically. You're not even going to have strong intrinsic factor in your gut from all the plant toxins. We could go on and on. I remember reading books. One of the best books I ever read, Dr. Rob, is called The Great Plant Based Con. totally laid out the history like we did in part one in more detail about how this plant agenda happened. Another one is toxic superfoods that talks about oxalate damage, the plant paradox talking about grains and cereals and all the lectins. There's so much literature out there that a lot of people are scared to talk about it. But the truth is, if you are going to eat these, there are things that you can do to prepare them, because although I ate zero vegetables in 2023, I have brought back in some plants since then, and I know which ones I do really well with, not just plants and veggies, but even some fruit.
Yeah, what I would also say is this is, again, and I said it on the last episode, is if you are going to eat the salad, if you are going to eat the plants like you're saying as
Yeah,
well, as you better darn sure make sure that you're also doing something to be healing yourself
you
metabolically
better believe it.
speaking. Because metabolically speaking, you want to make sure that your cells can absorb the nutrients that they need to
Yeah,
be able to get any nutrition or any nutrients that are in that, like we were talking about earlier, is the goal is you want to make sure that you're eating nutrient dense bioavailable foods.
yes,
But regardless of how much how nutrient dense it is or how bioavailable it is, if your cells are toxic, if your cells are sick and your cells can't metabolize the food or the nutrients that are coming in, it doesn't matter. So you
yeah.
better make sure that you're doing something to have a healthier metabolism so you can't get those nutrients in there. But yeah, okay, so let's talk about some of the best foods that we can eat that are vegetables and how to be able to prepare them so that we don't cause damage to ourselves.
Yeah, so I like, if you're gonna have, so here's a starchy carbohydrate that I'll have on occasion. It's white rice, and the reason it's white rice, you want to make sure that the fiber's gone.
Huge.
All of that husk and shell has the lectins, can even contain arsenic. You want to strip that away so you're not getting any of the
Wait a second.
wheat germ or gluten. What's that?
So you're saying that the brown rice option, if you're at Chipotle and they give you the option
Yeah,
of eating the white rice versus the brown rice, because the brown rice is supposed to be
you
healthier,
got it.
you should pick the white.
You want to go with the white rice because you want to have something that breaks down and is easily absorbed. White rice is way easier to be broken down and absorbed, especially with any type of starch, like even a potato or rice. What you want to do is really make sure that it's either white rice or you're peeling the potatoes and you're cooking them down, pressure cooking, cooking down and breaking down the starch, helping break down some of the lectins and the anti nutrients. And then one of the best things you can do is now, once you've cooked it, to put it in your refrigerator and then reheat it. And what that's going to do, that's going to help break down even more of the starch and allow that carbohydrate to be easily or more easily and readily absorbed in the gut. It's a very simple thing you can do. So if you're going to eat potatoes, I like sweet potatoes, whatever, make sure you peel these potatoes because they're underground and a lot of the protective agents are going to be the skin and the peel. Peel them, pressure cook them, any types of foods and vegetables, you want to de-seed them. All right. You're not wanting to eat the leaves and the stems and the seeds. Make sure that you de-seed these. You want to make sure that you soak these, sprout these. Fermentation is an ancient practice before there were refrigerators to help improve nutrient absorption, to help break down a lot of the anti nutrients. Make sure if you're eating anything else that you can germinate it. But this process of peeling and de-seeding and pressure cooking and sprouting and fermenting and soaking, that will bring up enzyme content and reduce a lot of the anti-nutrients.
I love it. Okay, what about juicing, for example? What's your feeling about if you're going to juice your veggies, like the green juices, things like that? What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, I think it's disgusting, by the way.
I guess
Yeah,
if you're
it's
being honest, you're
yeah.
you're 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 not wanting to just have the celery juice, or just you're not wanting to just have the kale
Oh,
or
kale.
the
How did kale
spinach.
become a superfood, by the way? You know, one of kale's main roles in the soil is to pull heavy metal from the soil, specifically thallium. So you think about it, it's pulling metals from the soil, and now we're crunching down on kale as if it's some type of superfood with all those oxalates. But yeah, juicing greens, not a good idea. That's an oxalate bomb. What you want to do really is, if you're going to juice, I like to juice fruit. And we can talk about fruit because fruit is a plant, and fruit also does have some level of defense chemicals. But fruit, unlike vegetables, they become very ripe and sweet. And there's a reason that they do this is because Remember, every plant wants to live, survive, and make it to the next generation. So, as a fruit, if it's not ripe and ready, it's green. That seed hasn't been fully developed and it's not ready to be deposited and grown. But as fruit starts to warm and become orange and yellows and red, those warm colors that animals sense with their eyes, that humans see, that is warming and inviting, that ripe fruit, now the seed is ready. And so that plant wants you to eat that fruit. It doesn't want you to eat the leaf. It doesn't want you to eat the stem. It doesn't want you to eat the root, but it does want you to eat that ripe fruit. Now, with juicing, a lot of you who've got gastrointestinal problems, you've got issues with bowel, IBS, constipation, diarrhea, you eat certain things and it disrupts you. Juicing could save your life because now you can remove all that pulp and fiber. So remember, plants all have cellulose, that hard to break down fiber that can block nutrients, bulk the stool, end up in your colon with a lot of undigested food causing endotoxin and lipopolysaccharide, which is very inflammatory. So I love juicing oranges. One of my favorite things, grapefruit, lemons. Getting nice citrus fruits are great. And that way you're getting the benefits of the ripe fruit and you're not getting any of the pulp and the fiber.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is if you're going to get your carbohydrates from fruits and veggies, to lean more towards the fruits versus the veggies.
I think the ripe fruit, just the studies would suggest, it doesn't have the same amount of defense chemicals. Now, unripe fruit will be a problem
Yeah.
for you. And there's a reason why it's bitter and it's green and it's not that inviting. But eating ripe fruit within seasons, local to where you are, makes a lot of sense. So I would focus on the most absorbable, nutrient dense carbs. That's why we love raw honey. God's perfect food that it's obviously mentioned in the Bible. And I think, the lifetime commitment of a bee, his contribution to society is 1 teaspoon of honey. The value of a teaspoon of honey is immeasurable, and it's a very easily broken down carbohydrate. So when you're eating foods, there's a big myth on fiber, Dr. Rob, where you're having to eat all this fiber. That fiber is the key to healthy gut and bowel. Yet if you've got some type of chronic disease like IBS or even like a colon issue or potential polyps or colon cancer, they'll tell you to eat all these fibrous rich foods.
Crazy.
Yet, if they cut your colon out and put you on a colostomy bag, guess what they tell you to do? Don't eat fiber because obviously it bulks stool and it keeps your body from getting the food, or keeps your body from digesting the food in the small intestine and in the gut before getting it to your colon.
Yeah, so we're gonna cook your veggies down like we just talked about in de-seeding. You also wanna you can cook it. You wanna cook it with like a healthy fat as well.
Absolutely.
So like your SET oil, butter, for example, they're good because remember, your body is utilizing these things for energy. And like we had talked about a few episodes ago, we were talking about the benefits of these good healthy fats, that it's a much more efficient energy inside your body
Yes.
versus a carbohydrate or these fruits or even getting any of the energy or glucose from the vegetables. And so when you're doing that, think about that. You want to make sure that you get some of both. So we're not saying you have to go all one or the other, but if you're looking at your plate and let's say you're going out to eat, you're going to dinner, what should that plate look like if you're looking down at that plate, Dr. Randy?
Yeah, it's simple because when you eat, you're thinking, how do I get my body the
Yeah.
most bioavailable nutrients? Don't worry about the calories. Stop counting calories. Start counting nutrients. Start counting chemicals. So all the fake food, the ingredient list, if it's a mile long, avoid it. But you want to think about getting a nice quality protein. That's always your foundation. And we love ruminant animals because they're magical creatures that God created who have multi-chambered stomachs who can take the grass and the plants and the seeds and biohydrogenate them, making these beautiful, healthy short chain fats and all this stearic acid and all these great proteins that we now get to eat. Heck, you're even getting polyphenols and antioxidants from the plants that are now in the fat and in the muscle meat of these animals. So pick a great protein: beef, venison, elk, lamb, some of our favorites. Chicken and turkeys, not so much, but they can still be consumed if they're raised correctly. They are monogastric, so if they're eating a lot of corn and soy, they're going to have a lot of toxins. And then think about eating some type of a vegetable if you want to eat it with your meal, but make sure that it's cooked properly, that it's cooked thoroughly, and that it is peeled. If you get a baked potato, that's fine. I'm sure it's cooked. Slather it with real butter and don't eat the skin. That would be a great idea. And then obviously have some type of a great ripe fruit if they've got it available at a restaurant or at home. Ripe fruit can be amazing. I love blueberries. Obviously I love oranges. I love ripe, delicious apples. These are amazing fruits. Peel the skins. You can cook these down. They're going to be most absorbable that way. So think about eating foods that are nutrient dense with the least amount of defense chemicals, the least amount of chemicals. Go regenerative, go organic if you can. Those are some of the things that I think about because I'm not worried about the calories. I just want to eat real food.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It makes it so simple, so easy. So you can go out to eat and still be healthy.
Just ask them what they
So
cook the food in.
exactly.
Yeah.
So just like we said, even though these so-called healthy veggies can hurt you,
Yeah.
okay, especially if you already have any kind of gut distress,
Yeah.
any kind of gut inflammation, they can definitely hurt you. Make sure that you get your gut healthy. Um, Go definitely check out our gut health program. I'm going to put the link in the show notes so that you guys can be able to have access to that. Spring clean your body. This is a perfect time of year to
Yeah.
be getting your gut healthy, getting you ready for your summer body. And it's also good for setting a good foundation. If you're thinking, hey, you know what? I've got 15 to 30 pounds to lose before summer hits. You could start setting the foundation by healing
Mhm.
your gut,
Yes.
then heal your metabolism after that. And guess what? June 1st hits and you are ready to get in that swimsuit, abs popping, looking good. And yeah, I think it's perfect in time for summer doing it that way. Go gut health, metabolism, and then you're ready for summer guilt
Yeah,
free.
and we've got it. We made it so simple to do that to work with us. And listen, it's not too late because June 1st, really, it's what, 2 months, April, May, yeah, 2 months away. And our average client who needs to lose weight who works with us are losing 20 to 30 pounds in about 5 to 6 weeks. So you could be right there supporting your gut, detoxing your body from seed oil, starting finally to absorb real nutrients. So you're no longer hungry or thinking you have to snack all day long to keep your energy up. Those are all signs that your body is just not absorbing nutrients, that it could be toxic, and that your body really needs to heal and do a spring clean. So hopefully this podcast has helped because I'm telling you, it's never been more fun for me, Dr. Rob, to eat now. Because once you understand real food nutrition, when you're looking at single ingredient food items and you're surfing for your food, simply eating real food, and you're avoiding a lot of the chemicals and the toxins, and not to mention all these vegetables, most all this stuff, unless you're getting really clean organic, it's all monocropped and sprayed with glyphosate and pesticides. When you're eating these real foods, it's amazing what your body will do and how quickly it can turn around. It isn't, it's really not a mystery. The chronic disease epidemic is very simple. We're being poisoned with chemicals, toxins, drugs, medications, vaccines, and fake food. Once you take ownership of your health and you start being intentional, you can turn this around very quickly. Trust me, we know personally, we've now helped thousands and thousands of people to do this.
Yeah, so if you're that person that's like, you know what, I'm eating the salads to be healthy, or I'm decreasing my calories and exercising like crazy, and you still feel like crap, you're not sleeping well, you still have the sweet cravings, you're still wanting the ice cream after you eat, you still want the candy during the day in order to be able to keep your energy levels up, or you feel like, you know what, I've got to drink coffee all day long to be able
Mhm.
to keep my energy levels up all day, or you just even have that some of that brain fog. You know what? You could have a problem either with your gut because of what we've been talking about. You could have a metabolism problem.
Totally.
If you think that that could be you, go to metabolismscore.com. There's a free quiz right there. That way you can be able to see if, okay, maybe you do have a metabolism issue and we can be able to help you. Because I can tell you from firsthand experience, back when I used to do the grain stuff and I was doing paleo and then just keto, where it was just proteins and fats only, no carbohydrates, I felt like crap.
Yeah.
And I was doing those things in order to try to lose weight, right? And so that's one of the things that we teach people is, you know what? Get your metabolism healthy, get healthy so that your body starts losing weight.
Yeah, the people
Okay.
you're
So,
asking maybe the wrong question. If you're
well,
wanting to lose weight, don't ask how do I lose weight. Ask how do I heal my metabolism. That's the foundation of everything. And so I think a lot of people listening, they're trying to lose weight. It's a big deal when we look at the metabolic obesity epidemic right now, and a lot of it is they're really trying to eat better. They're trying to make these changes,
yep.
but remember, if you're using dieting and exercise to lose weight, you're using those two strategies inappropriately. We're not saying don't eat right. We're not saying don't exercise. But remember, food and exercise are for your health. They're not for weight loss. If you can't lose weight without having to be perfect and living on a treadmill, that is a metabolic problem that'll never be solved with starvation and shame and guilt and beating yourself up. When is it going to finally be the point where you're ready to do something about it? If you've listened to any of our podcasts, now we're 112 episodes in. Remember the common theme here is that God doesn't make junk, that health is the normal, that really once you create the right environment, your body will respond towards health. Health really is that journey. It isn't a destination. You need leadership. You need guidance. Sometimes it's okay just to say, I need help. We are here to help you. This is our life's work. So like you said, Dr. Rob, go to metabolismscore.com. Reach out to us through social media. You can find us on Instagram at the THEH, the number 2 life, the H2 life on Instagram. You can also check us out at thehappyhealthylife.com, our website. We've got our newsletter. We've got our podcast. We've got our e-commerce site. We've developed so many and crazy metabolic products and the world's favorite short chain triglyceride oil, SCT oil. So check us out, share, like. We appreciate you guys for tuning in.
Awesome. You guys have a great day.
God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure to follow them on Instagram at the H2 Life or on YouTube and Facebook at the Happy Healthy Guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.